Randy Smith. I'm from the Jackson Laboratory.
Peter 35.
I'm Jason.
They want me to talk a little bit about how I got to where I am. So I started out actually in mining engineering. My father was a coal miner in southwestern Pennsylvania, and he worked his way up from a stonemason to, like he used to joke, he was as high up as you could go and stay underground. He was a face boss. He was one person that they would drop a shaft here and they would drop the shaft here, and there's 4 miles distance, and he would be the one to drive underground and hit that spot. He had to hit within like 6 inches or so. So he had a reputation of being very precise, and I was raised in that. Now, my love was chemistry, so I changed out of mining engineering into chemistry, and in the process, I did get disowned because my parents were very strong on their opinions, and they finally did forgive me a couple years later. I got my undergraduate degree in chemistry from Penn State. I worked my way through school. I worked at just about everything that I could to make a living. I was a librarian and reference librarian at one of the world's largest libraries. I worked in all kinds of labs, washing dishes, doing whatever I could. I was a chef's assistant. I was a jeweler, a little bit of everything. Night watchman. Night watchman was really cool because I could go to school during the day and work during the night. I did my graduate work at Sunny Ave in Buffalo, New York, and completed a degree in analytical chemistry and started as a laboratory director for environmental firms doing DOE and DOD and EPA contract. And we had, I did that for about close to 20 years. And then my wife, who's a molecular biologist, came home and said, "You always said if I found a job I loved, you'd be willing to move." And she just got a job at the Jackson Lab, so we moved up here about 10 years ago. And since I came up, I've been doing work for the Jackson Lab in education outreach, also in data management, and in project management for some of the professors.
So does your work that you did as a reference librarian, and that stuff that you've talked about in other contexts, about searching data, searching through databases that are genetic in nature, do those jive in any way?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like I joke with people. I have a librarian's attitude towards life. I don't know everything, but I know where to find it. And I think these are the skill sets that we need to give our students. And one of the things I'm trying to promote at the Jackson Lab, especially with the new education outreach program that they've started there, is exactly that, to try to encapsulate some of the skills that we find essential that even postdocs entering into the laboratories up there don't have. How do you record your scientific research so it's reproducible? How do you maintain your records so that they're safe and recoverable? And you know what one of the professors is discovering now, when you have 7 terabytes worth of data, it doesn't do any good to say, "Where's the data from that project we did 7 years ago? I think John was involved." You know, it just isn't going to work. So how do we annotate things and really track them? It's becoming, I think, more and more essential to bring this to the forefront, to make sure that our students understand the limitations and can take proper action. Otherwise, they're going to learn the hard way. They're going to learn by losing a disk drive and losing 6 months worth of work, or by, like the story I told in my session this morning of the teacher, the postdoc that we had this absolutely beautiful picture she wanted to include in a publication. She couldn't remember where she got the data from.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely essential that you have that track record. We're working more and more with concurrent version control, and most students don't even know what it exists. I'm looking forward to the day that I walk into a high school classroom and I mention concurrent version control, and the students start arguing over if CV or subversion is better in a given application, and who prefers to use command line versus tortoise. When I hear that discussion, then I know that the students are starting to catch up with the demands in the data field.
Where do students learn that now?
They don't.
Yeah, so how could
everything is so prescriptive. It's very difficult to put in extra topics, extra.
I know, and that's a big disadvantage. One of the things that we're hoping to do is to build modules that can be inserted into classes that meet the standards. And a project that Jan and I are working on currently is an offshoot of GeneQuest, where we did computational biology with fictitious organisms called dragons and drakes. We needed to simplify the genome so it could be done in a reasonable period of time in a high school class. But what we did is we incorporated into that module the standards, but we also incorporated data collection, data recording, working with budgets. So you can incorporate these skills directly at the same time that you're meeting the standards and the necessities.
Those are also other standards in different areas.
In a different area, but you can't separate the areas.
That's right.
There's a program down in Princeton right now that was started by David Botstein, and he's actually in the 5th year of doing this. He took an undergraduate curriculum, first 2 years of undergraduates, and he did an integrated science program at Princeton where they teach science project-based. So you don't have a genetics class and a math class and a physics class and a chemistry class. You have a project class that uses all of them simultaneously. And it's basically a just-in-time warehouse for knowledge. So you go in and say, okay, this is the problem we need to solve. What is the knowledge that I need from these different fields to do it? And then you dig it out and put it together as a team. It's very, very innovative. They have an extremely high success rate in taking their students and placing them in graduate programs. Harvard snatched up, I think, 90% of the first graduating class.
Your outreach program, is that for elementary school students, high school students?
It's primarily right now high school through college, but we're looking at expanding into middle school at this stage. But I'm very interested in finding out what the community needs. One of the things that I want to do is model the outreach program to meet the needs of the community. So I need to find out what those needs are.
Of course, you guys are on an island. It's not an isolated island, but it's hard to get to from...
I just got back from Guam. Don't talk to me about hard to get to islands. 30 hours on a plane. So, there are harder places to get to. But we use a lot of virtual connections. We actually taught a class in Guam, and one of the instructors was at Mount Desert Island and Bar Harbor. Another was in California, and my students were in Guam, and I was in Guam, and we linked all of our desktops together. So, yeah, we're on an island, but I could put a scientist in your classroom on a screen.
Yep, that's fine.
Very easily. And the students would have direct interaction with them. The scientists would have direct interaction with the students. And the scientists really like this. I had David Botstein give a 45-minute lecture to my students. I could not have paid him any sum of money to take 3 days out of his schedule of research, because he's so busy, to fly all the way up to Bar Harbor to give that talk. But because he could do it from his desk, I called him up, I made arrangements, we coupled it with his IT people, and he says, absolutely, I'll give you an hour of my time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Panelists, the participants